Welcome to Photoshop practice number 4. What you are going to do is on the assignments, you are going to find the assignment and download all of the images that are on that assignment. You will then put them in a folder called Photoshop practice number 4. Hopefully you have a digital design folder that you can save all of your projects and all of your Photoshop practices in so that you stay organized. So what we're going to do is we are going to open up so I have my Photoshop practice number 4 folder. We are going to open up, I believe it's the Jetsons 2. Yes, the Jetsons 2. Click open. All right, and you get this nice view of the Jetsons. Okay, so what we're going to do is we are going to cut out all of the Jetsons and put them on all of their own layers. So first thing we need to do is make this an active layer and unlock it. We are going to name this the Jetsons. And we are also going to make a copy of this. So one way you can make a copy is by right-clicking and clicking Duplicate Layer. It's okay if you have it named Jetsons Copy. Now the reason why I'm doing this is it's always important to have a copy of your picture or whatever image just in case you were to mess up, you have something to fall back on. You don't have to re-import or replace the image. Okay, so it's always important to have a fallback copy. And sometimes you might be doing something where you need this background copy and you're doing something on top of it that's altering this part. So it's important to have a copy. So for right now, we're going to just hide the Jetsons copy. Make sure that the Jetsons copy, the Jetsons layer, just the Jetsons layer is selected. So you click on it. And what we're going to do is we are going to use several different types of selection tools to cut out our characters. So I'm going to zoom in on, I believe her name is Judy. She's the teenager of the bunch. So we're going to zoom in on her. And again, you can use your 2 fingers on your trackpad to zoom in by spreading apart your fingers on the trackpad, or to zoom out, it is to pinch them together. You can also, if you need to move this around, you can hold down spacebar, click and drag, and you can move it to where you need it in the best view. So we're going to go over here on the left side to our tool panel. If you can't see your tool panel, just make sure that you go to Window and make sure that Tools is selected, and that should bring it up. We are going to go to what's called the rectangular marquee tool. We are going to click and drag a rectangle around Judy, and you have a nice selection. We are going to hold down Command on our keyboard and click X, and that cuts her out. Now you're going to hold down Command and hit V, as in violin, and you see that she is on her own separate layer. We're going to name this layer Judy. Okay, so now if I select my Move tool, which I can go over here and select it from the toolbar, or I can just click V on my keyboard and I can move her around. Okay, Judy is now done. We're going to move on to Jane. Jane is the mom. Now Jane she's pretty good with the rectangle, and we can draw a rectangle around her. Oh, and now I want to make sure I am on my Jetsons layer. So if I were to have tried to cut and paste out, nothing would have happened because I was on Judy's layer. And right here where I have the selected pixels, there's nothing. so nothing would have happened. So you've got to make sure that you're on the layer that you want to manipulate. Go ahead and click Command X, cut her out, and then Command V to put her on our own layer, and rename it to Jane. Hide her. Make sure Jetsons is selected. And we're going to go over to Elroy. Now, Elroy has this oblong shape. Now, we could do a rectangular tool, but I'm going to show you a different way. So we are going to use what's called the lasso tool. The lasso tool is just a free-form selection that you can draw around something. So if you click and hold, it'll start drawing kind of a line around there. And we're just going to continue to draw around him. It doesn't have to be perfect as long as it's not getting into him. And once I go to the end of the selection, it should make walking ants around him. We're going to do the same thing, Command X and Command V. We'll name him Elroy. Okay, so Elroy is on his own layer as well. We'll hide him. Select the Jetsons layer. We'll go over to George. Okay, we are going to navigate the polygonal lasso tool. And with this one, it just kind of does, you click and it does more angular. It's really good for shapes that are nice and geometric. Or if you wanted your cutout to have a nice geometric looking cutout. So as you can see, as I'm nearing the end of my selection, it will pop up with an O or a circle at the very bottom of the tool picture, and you will just close out that selection. And again, Command X and Command V. We're cutting and pasting. So we are going to name this George. Make sure the Jetsons layer is selected and hide George. All right, and we're going to do the polygonal lasso tool again around Dino the dog. Okay. We have Dino the dog getting all cut out. And close the selection. Hit Command X, Command V, hide him. We'll name it Dino. And then now we need to go over to Rosie. Rosie you can use the rectangular tool now that there's not a Dino in there. You can cut her out, or you can go back through and you can do the lasso tool. Bloop, 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 bloop. Do-ka-do-ka-do, shoot, bloop. And cut her out. Oh, I'm on the Dino layer, so we gotta make sure that I'm on the Jetsons layer. Command X, Command V, and her name is Rosie. Wonderful. We'll go ahead and hide her. We'll zoom out. So you should see that there are cutouts of where our characters used to be. Okay, so we don't really need this layer anymore. If I were to unhide this, all of those characters would go into the places where they were cut out. And we're just going to keep that copy layer around, but we can delete this cutout layer and go ahead and unhide all of your characters and move them around to where they're not overlapping each other. Okay, so we still have some of this white around the edge. And I'm going to show you how we're going to take away that white. Okay, and we could use the eraser tool, but it's not going to be as refined. and we would probably cut in. We'd have to be super specific. This is actually the magic eraser tool, which actually erases similarly cut areas with a single click. So that is really nice. That's a new feature that I didn't know. Congratulations. If you were in class, you didn't get to see that. So that is one way that you can do that. Another way is by going right under the lasso tool. We have what's called a quick selection tool. We're going to click and hold down and hit the magic wand tool. And we are going to, first off, make sure that we are on the appropriate layer. So if you accidentally select something, you can always hit Command D. And you're going to select the white. But I also have this part right here in the middle of his legs. I'm going to hit down Shift and it's going to bring up a plus sign. So I'm going to click in there and it will also add to that selection. And I can just hit Delete. Boom. And then hit Command D. And the same thing happened. Let me make sure. Oh, because I had a little bit of the layer outside of that, I need to do that to his foot. So make sure all of your images are in view. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing. So you can either use, got to make sure that the layer that we need is selected. So you can use the magic wand tool and you can hit delete and then to deselect Command D. Or you can go through and hit that magic eraser. Make sure you're on the layer that needs to. And you can go in and, so this might have to zoom in on in order to get there. But yeah, it looks good. Now with Elroy here, I'm going to go ahead and use the magic wand tool. And I'm going to make sure, so this part is going to be a little tricky. So we talked about tolerance and class. So the tolerance level is right up here. So what that basically means is at 32, it's a standard tolerance level, and it is going to be in a range of selecting 16 pixels that are in the like a darker shade that are 16. I'm trying to word it correctly, but basically 16 shades darker and 16 shades lighter than the original shade that was selected. So if you zoom in here, you are going to see some different variations of white, and there's some pink and everything. It's because we're dealing with a pixelated image. It's made of pixels. So, but we can see if we select in here, a lot of these darker pixels are going to be selected as well. So we want to actually lower the tolerance level so it doesn't select as many pixels. So I'm going to hit Command Z to go back. So Z as in zebra, so I can still see my main selection. That's fine. We actually, you know what, we're going to start all over. We're going to change the tolerance level. We'll try it at 26. And then we'll go in here. So it's doing a little bit of a better job, but not completely. So we'll hit Command D to get out of there. And we'll go down to, let's try 23. So remember, you hit your Shift key when you want to add areas. Okay. So it's looking a little bit better. All right, and then you can go through and you can hit delete. Now this made this part really, really light. So what we're going to do is we're going to hover over Elroy's thumbnail. We're going to hold down Command and we're going to click. And this is actually going to select all of Elroy's pixels. Okay, and we're going to go in and we're going to darken this up with our paintbrush tool. So I'm going to select my paintbrush tool. You can also hit B on your keyboard. And I'm going to make sure that black is selected in my foreground color. And everything should be so normal. Opacity is at 100. We can change the hardness, which basically means it's just going to be less soft. So it's going to be more hard when I go over it. And I'm just going to color over where it's not very dark. And I can go over again to make it a little bit darker. And that will darken up that area to where it's not so light. Okay? Now if you need to make your paintbrush tool bigger or smaller, you can use your brackets on your keyboard. The brackets are right next to the letter P, right to the right. So there you go. And I'm just going to say we're going to have to do the same thing with George. So make sure George is selected. He has this nice little curly Q. Oh, you might want to actually put your tolerance level back at 32. That way it doesn't select too much of this little curly Q. Okay, and then go ahead and delete, and then Command D. And we're going to go through, so hover over George's thumbnail, hold down Command and click. And we're going to do the same thing with the paintbrush tool. Just to make it a little darker. Yeah, that's better. So now all of them are cut out and they all have their own layer. Perfecto! That is part 1 of Photoshop practice number 4. Congratulations, you made it.